Hello, today we are going to talk about the Git distributed version control system and especially related to KDE Git repositories. So before Git version control system, there used to be other version control systems. The first best known of them was CVS. Which is what? Concurrent version system. Savannah on GNU.org project CVS. Developed in 1986 by Dick Grun. Okay, so after CVS, there was Subversion, which is this thing, collabnet, October 2000, svn.apache.org/repo/Apache Software Foundation/Subversion. Enterprise class centralized version control for the masses. So if Git is a DVCS, decentralized version control, then maybe the most well-known, used up until recently, centralized version control system was Subversion. Okay, it was developed with the goal to be a successor to the widely used current version system. Okay, at one point most of the open source projects were using CVS, and then at another point most of the open source projects were using Subversion. Now most of them use Git, but there still are open source projects that use CVS or SVN. Okay, and in the forges there used to be SourceForge. Most of the open source projects used to be hosted here, sf.net, sourceforge.net, while now they're hosted in GitLab, or most importantly GitHub. Okay, so the two most popular current software packages that are used as forges are GitHub and GitLab. Okay, so GitHub is three things: a company, which is subsidiary of Microsoft, a website which is called github.com, and a software package written in Ruby, JavaScript, Go, C. Okay, so most open source by quantity, not necessarily by quality, open source projects live in github.com. Yes. It's the largest source code host as of November 2021. And its sibling, which is GitLab, again, three things: a company, GitLab Inc., NASDAQ GTLB, Dmitro Zaporozhets. Okay, their website, which is gitlab.com, this thing, and their application, which is written in Ruby, Go, Vue.js. And the GitLab application can be installed on premise. So you can download it and install it on your own server, which is what many important and large open source communities do, such as the KDE community has KDE Invent, freedesktop.org has gitlab.freedesktop.org, and there's also, for the GNOME community, gitlab.gnome.org. Okay. So now we know what's the difference between Git, GitLab, and GitHub. We know that GitLab is a software package that can be installed on your own servers. Let's go back to Git. So Git is was originally developed by Linus Torvalds in 2005 with Junio Hamano, and is essentially a file system. Has a .git hidden directory. So let's look at such a repository. So for instance, this one, Games Kubrick from the KDE community has such a hidden directory .git. And then outside of the hidden directory .git, there's the usual files that developers put in their directory. So this is the source code directory for the game named Kubrick. These files are the files that we want to use for building and running and documentation and translation and everything. So these files represent the open source project Kubrick. But then, besides the files that make up the current version of the project, there is also the .git directory that contains a file system that contains items such as git commits, git remotes, git branches, git refs, git hooks, a local config file. What else? A local ignore file. Okay. And there's a garbage collection, so git commits that are not refed, don't have any reference pointing to them, will be garbage collected, will disappear. And storage on hard disk of all of the git commits might be compressed. So there might be on the local hard disk compressed file containing maybe multiple git commits. So branches, hooks, sample files. This is the local exclude file. Nothing in here, just a sample. The local config file. Says that there's a fork which points to my instance in invent.kd.org, so n-p, and the other remote is called origin, which is KDE, which is a keyword, and then game/kubrick.git. We don't really know what KDE means, but it probably means invent.kd.org and then games Kubrick git. Okay, My remote, which is called fork, uses the git SSH protocol, whereas the origin remote uses HTTPS protocol. The HTTPS protocol for me is read-only, whereas the git SSH protocol is read-write. So I can write to this git repository, I can read from this repository, and I can read from this git repository. Okay. So they say that Linus Torvalds and fellow developers that helped build and start the Git project come from the Linux Git project, so they were kernel people and they knew how to write file systems, and that's what they did. They wrote a file system that behaves like a distributed version control system. Why distributed? Because Linus Torvalds used Perforce previously, and he used zip files previously, prior to that, or tarballs. So that's what he knew best, and that's what he implemented when he started development of the Git project. Okay, so you use Git three ways, either from the command line, or you use the built-in GUI tools from Git, or you use third-party things like Visual Studio Code has its own integration, other IDEs such as Visual Studio, Eclipse, etc. CLion have their own Git integration, or there's the GitHub GUI package from GitHub. This thing, GitHub Desktop, that exists for Windows and macOS. And looks like this. There's other third-party GUIs written on top of Git. There was one from Atlassian. Source 3. This thing. So many. There's at least 20 top-notch commercial supported Git GUIs on top of Git. Okay. Personally, I use just the first two ones, which is Git command line plus the built-in GUIs from inside the Git project. So I don't use any other thing. I don't use a third-party GUI wrapper on top of Git. I don't use the IDEs, so integrated development environment integration for Git. Okay. gitscm.org, the official website. This thing. Okay, on Linux, I usually use whatever comes with my distribution for Git. So I'm on Kubuntu 22.04. I'm using the official Git dep packages from Kubuntu 22.04. Okay, how do we install that? I become super user, and then I install on Ubuntu Debian and derived distributions Git, which contains just the command line tools, gitk, which is the official Git GUI for history, and Git GUI, which is the official Git GUI tool for other things than history, so commit, pull, fetch, rebase, branch, etc. Push. Okay, and says that all of the packages are already installed, but 2 of the 3 packages have newer versions available? Do we want to upgrade git -GUI and gitk? And I press enter because the Y is uppercase, so the Y is the default option, so I press enter. Okay. I exit a super user, so I'm not root anymore. Control D. Okay. And let's create a directory F7 in Crusader, the Orthodox file manager, and name this thing, I don't know, S source. I navigate into it, and let's see how we use Git. First of all, we'll need a Git repository that we can download. Let's do that. So let's say we have this thing, which is github.com/qxmpp project qxmpp. We go on the code button, the green one, HTTPS. I press the copy button, which is these two rectangles button. Click on it, it says copied. And then let's not use the integrated terminal in Crusader, let's use console, which is a terminal emulator from the KDE project. Control A, Control C, CD, where are you? Control Shift D, Control Shift V to paste, enter, Control L to clean, and let's look at the manual for Git. Okay, so we can do version, help, what else? There's a Git tutorial to get started, so man git tutorial. Man git every day. Git CLI man page. Okay, so there's the executable Git is going to look at its first parameter. So for instance, if it's git clone, then it will call the executable git -clone and pass the rest of the command line to the executable git clone. If I do git branch, it will call git -branch and put the rest of the command line into this process. So that's what they call porcelain. Okay, so in order for us not to use git minus something, git minus that, we're using git space and then branch, bundle, checkout, cherry pick, clean, describe, commit, etc. But the possibilities are listed here under high main level commands, porcelain. So there's add, am, archive, bisect, branch, bundle, checkout, cherry pick, git tool, etc. Okay. The list is huge of possibilities. I'm going to show you first what I do, how I use Git. So I'm in the correct directory. The very first thing that I do, if the Git repository exists, I go git clone. Let's look at the help. So it says git clone. It clones a directory inside of the a directory, a subdirectory of this directory, probably a repository. That's the way I do it. Okay, and I could specify the directory. I don't, I never do. And then I can specify a repository. So these are the two last parameters. Directory is optional, so enclosed into square brackets, whereas repository is maybe the only mandatory command line parameter to the git clone command. So git clone, everything else is between square brackets, just repository is not between square brackets, so we need to give this as a parameter. Q. So git clone, copy the URL again. So again, we're using the Forge GitHub. The open source project is called qxmpp-project/qxmpp. We're in the entry point web page for this project. We go code, HTTPS, click on the double squares button, copied, it says copied, then we go Ctrl+Shift+V. So the command line is git clone, and then whatever is the URL using HTTPS protocol to the Git repository. So https:// which is really similar to what we see in the Mozilla Firefox address bar. github.com/qxmpp-project/qxmpp, and then a .git is appended. In here, there's a .git in here in the URL address bar. There's no .git. Okay. We press enter. What it does, it says cloning into qxmpp, which means that it decided that a subdirectory will be created with the name qxmpp. So if we list the directory, it says that just one directory exists now here, which is called qxmpp. Inside, it took all of the Git repository and put it in there. So what means the entire Git repository means two things. These files, which are outside of the .git directory, which is the current version of all of the files that make up the project qxmpp. So this is how each and every file from the qxmpp project source file looks like at this moment. Whereas in the .git directory, there's the rest of the things. So again, there's history in here in objects. In here, this is a compressed file containing a ton of git commits. Then there's the local config file, which says that we have just one remote, which is the URL that we just passed to git clone. We're currently using the master branch, which comes from the remote origin. Okay. And this is not a bare Git repository. Okay. Then there's a local git exclude file, empty, just a sample, so nothing specified in here. Then there's these are defaults, so nothing in here, nothing in branches, nothing in hooks. In info, just the local exclude file. In refs, we have the remotes, just one, origin. Okay. In heads, we have just one head, which is called master, the master branch. In tags, we don't have anything. In this is some information about the git commits the git commit that's the latest in master branch, and the latest in remote origin, the head. Okay. So that's it. Again, the history is in here. History meaning the list of all of the git commits ever. So since the moment you git init you created a git repository until today, all of the git commits are available in here. Okay, so now let's look at the what can we do with a Git project once we have Git cloned it. So we can do everything if we ignore the .git directory. So we can read files, not like this, right? How do we read a MD file? Now we should change directory. So there's in the S directory, there's just a directory now, other files. So we need to change to the directory of qxmpp, and then we can open with Visual Studio Code the readme, and we press the preview button. So now we see how the readme file should be laid out. So the human readable version of the file, and then the source code of the file. Okay, so let's see what it says. It's a cross-platform C++ XMPP client. So XMPP is the protocol Jabber for instant messaging, IM. Both a client and a server library written in C++ using the Qt framework. Okay, and since it's a CMake standard project, you could go the usual route when you want to build it. So make dir build, cd build, CMake parent directory, and then CMake build. And you can install it. Okay, let's close this thing. So we can read all of these files, we can edit all of these files, and the next thing to do is to look at the history. So I'm using the command line for the following things: git clone, git init dot, git fetch, git rebase origin master, git clean -xdf, and that's about it. The rest of the things I do from the built-in GUI tools that are available from the Git, straight from the Git project. So no, not a third-party GUI over the Git project, but GUI tools that exist inside of the Git project. So these are just two. There's one which is called Git GUI, which is for all things except history. Ctrl-Z, BG. And the other thing is called gitk. This is for the history. This is how the history looks like. So there's one remote, which is called origin. There's two Git repositories. One is remote origin, the other one is the local. The local Git repository is using the branch, the local branch master, and the remote origin Git repository is using the branch master. And both of these branches, both of these Git repositories point to the same Git commit, which is mem manager add future based interface from Linus Jan from a couple of days ago. Okay. Again, so git clone, I run from the command line. It's easier like that. I just paste a URL in here. Copy and Ctrl-Shift-V. What other things I do? I do git fetch. This thing. What does git fetch do? Git fetch takes the... So this is a Git repository. The .git hidden directory is not shown in this web UI, so from github.org, but it exists in here. So there's a .git directory, and that .git directory is synchronized to the local .git directory. So again, there's two Git repositories. Right, this one. So one which is the local repository, the other which is this in github.com/qxmpp-project/qxmpp. The two Git repositories are identical, and there's are equivalent. One is not better than the other. So that's what distributed version control means. Means that if this github.com disappears tomorrow, there's not a problem. We still have the entire Git repository with all of its history, all of its branches, everything locally. Okay. If this project decides to stop using GitHub tomorrow and moves to gitlab.com, not a problem. We just change on the local Git repository the origin remote to not point to github.com but to point to gitlab.com, and everything can work correctly from there on. So again, the two Git repositories are identical, and there's not one which is better than the other. Both are the best. Both the local QXMPP Git repository, which is this directory, and the remote github.com/qxmpp-project/qxmpp. Okay, so two identical, equivalent, not one better than the other Git repositories, the local one and the one on github.com. But we need some way to take whatever is newer in the .git directory remote and put it in the .git directory local, or to take what's newer in the .git directory local and put into the .git directory on github.com. So from github.com to from github.com, the .git directory, we sync files to the local .git directory using the command fetch. So I went git fetch from the command line. Okay, so we can apply the newest things. So if there's a new git commit on github.com, that will be in the .git directory in github.com. We have just made sure that the two .git directories are identical, so now we have the new things in the .git directory local. So that the idea is, how do we take the newest things that exist in .git directory local and put them in here, so in the rest of the files and directories outside of the .git directory. That I usually do in the command line. So it's called git rebase origin/master, this, and it tells me that there's no new git commits remotely that don't exist locally, and then whatever I have in the local .git directory is reflected outside of the .git directory. So that's the message: current branch master is up to date. Okay, let's make the current master branch not be up to date. For that means I'm manipulating the history, and for history things I'm using the git GUI. So git GUI, don't forget to put the end character, the ampersand. Okay, and we go repository, visualize all branch history. So the local branch called master is shown bold. So that's the branch we're currently on. Git GUI says current branch master, and gitk, the git history, shows master branch, this green label, as bold. So we want to move the local master to skip call manager tests on macOS. So I go right click on this. So these are git commits. One git commit, another one, another one, another one, another one. the atoms of the git history are git commits. Okay. I go right click. Where are you? Skip call, this thing. Right click. Reset master branch to here. Whenever you reset something, you should make it hard, but be careful, you might lose local changes. So always make sure that you have commits and your git commits will not be lost. So there's at least one branch that points to the most recent git commit. So in this case, the branch remotes/origin/master is pointing to the last commit, the one from 17th October. So that's why mom manager and omemo manager, etc. will not be lost by when git does its garbage collection. If I move both of the branches, both master and remote origin master, to skip call manager test on macOS, and then I run garbage collection, the following git commits will die and disappear. This. Okay. So all of the git commits that don't have a reference pointing to them or one of their parents will disappear when git garbage collect runs. Okay, but since we have remote origin master pointing to the newest git commit, we'll move the local master to point to skip call manager test on macOS. There's no local changes, local files that are not staged and committed, so nothing will be lost. I ever used git reset hard. I've never used git reset soft or mixed, so it's always hard for me. I'm careful not to lose work. So let's see it again. Right click on a git commit, so skip call this git commit, reset master branch to here, hard, and then OK. Now the local master branch has moved back in history to the 16th of October. Okay, so 1 day previous to the newest git commit. So the newest commit is in the 17th, and we moved to the 16th of October. Okay. So now all of the files that exist outside of the .git directory have been changed, recreated, edited, such that they look exactly the way they looked in on the 16th of October when Linus Jan did this git commit skip call manager tests on macOS. Okay. If we do git fetch, nothing will happen because the two git directories, two .git directories from github.com and from the local directory are identical. So git fetch will do nothing. It doesn't say anything, which means it didn't copy any objects from the .git directory in github.com to the local git.git directory. If it copies file objects from github.com to the local, it will say copied this amount of objects. Okay, so git fetch is successful and didn't need to copy anything. Now we can go git rebase origin master. So that means make the local master branch point to the same git commit as the remote master branch. It says successfully rebased and updated refs heads master. So now not refs origin master, but refs heads master. Okay, let's look at the history again. Repository, visualize all branch history. Now both branches, the local master and the remote master, point to the newest git commit. Okay, so this is the way that you make sure that you have all of the objects that exist in remote origin also locally with git fetch, and then with git rebase origin master, you make sure that all of the git commits that exist locally are going to be placed on top of remote/origin/master. I'm going to show you in a moment how that is done. If you don't have any extra git commits locally, so if you didn't work anything in the last 5 days, then you shouldn't have any extra git commit local that doesn't exist on GitHub. So that's why when you go git fetch git rebase origin master, this is the way the history should look like: a ton of git commits, and on top of them there should be remote origin master and the local master. If you had local git commits that don't exist on GitHub, then the remote origin master should point to this git commit, the one manager, whereas on top of this git commit there should be all of the git commits that exist only locally, let's say 2 git commits, 1 and 2, and then master should point to the newest one of the git commits that only exist locally. So again, on top of the history of remote origin master, there should be all of the local commits and the local master branch pointing to the newest local git commit. If you have extra git commits locally that don't exist on GitHub. Okay. Another thing that you want to do, for instance, you edited a file and you don't like your edits. Let's say you misspell Qt like this. Ctrl S. Okay. So we've edited the local Git repository qxmpp, just one file, readme.md. Let's see how this looks like. So we go git GUI and then ampersand, and then it says that you have 3 places where you put modified things. There's unstage changes, there's stage changes, and then there's the git commits. This thing. Okay, so we have a file that's changed, that was not git committed, that was not staged, so it's not a stage change, and it's therefore a unstaged change. The name of the file is readme.md. The changes are like this. So the line in C++ and uses Qt framework was deleted. The line in C++ and uses Qt framework with the uppercase T was added. So when it shows pairs of line edit, line removed with similar contents, then in fact this line was not deleted and this line was not added. In fact, this line was changed. So it changed just a character, the lowercase t became an uppercase T, but Git is showing it as one line deleted and one line added. Because it's true that one line changed could be represented as one line deleted with a minus and then one line added. Okay, the same thing. So we changed in here a lowercase t with an uppercase T, lowercase t, uppercase T. So now it shows this line as deleted, this line as added. This uppercase T, this lowercase t, this line deleted, this line added. So again, you should know that there's no line deleted and line added, it's just a line changed. But this is the way Git shows it. So Git shows a file that was deleted, which means all of the lines have disappeared and went to dev null. A file that has been added, which says that the previous was dev null, now there's a file and all of the lines have been added. Or a file has been changed. That things means if you really deleted, let's say, this paragraph, then it will say minus, 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 so minus qxmpp, minus core, minus encapsulated, minus d, minus it. That's the way you delete a paragraph. In order to add a paragraph, you will see such a thing, so plus something, plus something, plus something, bunch of lines that are new and then they are shown with a plus in front of them, or change lines, the last possibility, which is shown as a deleted line and edit line. Okay, let's let's do a git commit of this thing. So I press on the icon of the file, this thing. It moved the file from unstaged to staged. Okay, now I prepare the commit message. Commit messages should follow etiquette. So let's look at that. Git commit message. How to write a git commit message, how to write a good commit message, how to write the best commit message, how to write better commit messages. Okay, so there's opinions on how to write commit messages, and most of them converge. So this is an example of git history that doesn't look okay. So when you have you're putting git commit messages just to have some git commit messages, like miss changes, miss bug fixes, you know, that doesn't say anything about that git commit. So you want your history to look good. That's what you want, right? You want the git commits to have these lines between them the way you want them to. So you might want them to be a single line, might want them to be a ton of 8s or a Y or something. So you decide how these lines between git commits should look like, and then when you look at the git history, that thing that you thought of should be in here. So you have the ample possibilities of rewriting the git history such that it looks the way you want it. And then these strings in here, so the text, the git commit message title, should look the way you want it. So we can see that this project prefers to have a where and then a colon and then a space and then a what. So mom manager colon space what, omemo manager colon space what, e2ee extension colon space what. When you do a git commit for a git repository, it's better if you look at the git history and see the way that open source git repository prefers to have the git messages. Maybe they use some convention, maybe all of their git commit message titles start with where minus space what. So it's etiquette to use the same type of git commit messages that already exist in the same git repository. Okay. And then the git commit message title should reflect what's inside of the git commit. So let's look at discovery manager, use new IQ request handling. So in fact, the only two edited files are qxmpp discovery manager. So that's what we expected, because where is discovery manager in the git commit message title. So the edited files are just qxmpp discovery manager, qxmpp being a namespace, then discovery manager.cpp. In C++ source code, discovery manager in this case is always a pair of things. You have a cpp file and an h header file, an include file. So often when you change something in the .h file, you will need to edit also the cpp file. So if you change the signature of a method in discovery manager.h, you will also need to edit discovery manager.cpp to change the signature of the implementation. So that's the way it goes. That's why I almost never write .cpp or .h in the where. So like this. discovery manager, node.cpp, node.h, and then colon space some what. Okay, and the what should use a certain tense, should not be past, should be, I don't know, present or something. So read some of the pages that I have shown you, how to write better commit messages, and see in there what should be. Capitalize the first word and do not end in punctuation. This is for the title. Okay, use imperative mood, add fix for dark mode toggle. Okay, length, the first line should be no longer than 50 characters, the body should be restricted to 70 characters, there should be a new line between the title and the body. Don't use bullshit, so no filler words, no things that apply to all of the Git commits ever. Think like a journalist. Wow. Okay, so in here shows really long Git commit message titles, which are not okay because that Git commit message title will be truncated when you do merge requests, pull requests, will not show easily in command line listings, etc. So do have shorter Git commit message titles. Do respect the length that people recommend for the body lines and for the title lines. So subject maximum 50 characters. There should be a new line between title and the rest of the body, and then the body should you should press enter key between before writing 72 characters. So these are enter, 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 enter. This is not automatic wrap, this is manual wrap. You wrap the lines before you reach the 72nd character. Okay, separate subject from body with a blank line. So there's a blank line in here. This is the title, blank line, and then body. Yeah, you sometimes don't have a body, you have just a title, which is okay, so you don't have an empty new line or something if your git commit message just contains the title. Okay. Git log one line prints just the subject line. Git short log. Okay. And be really careful with the git commit messages, because this will be used in change logs, will be shown in PR articles, in blogs, will appear in RSS, blog aggregator, planets. So if you do something that's not really good, you will be able to see your work years from now in various places that you did not think of. So do make the git commit message professional and respecting the etiquette. Okay, so this should be maximum 50 characters, and this should be maximum 72 characters, a new line between them, where colon space what, imperative language, present not past, and you never say done something, because you don't know if that thing was completely finished and done and you fixed all of the issues. So when you say fixed issue something, maybe it's not that. Maybe some manual tester will find that in some corner case you didn't fix the issue completely. So you say fixed issue blah blah, not fixed issue. So don't use past, use present. Okay. So let's follow their suggestion for git commits. I'll put it on the right hand side of the screen. I use the right hand half of the screen as what I call documentation. I use 1080p resolution. And in the left hand side, the left half of the screen, I have what I call work. So in this case is git GUI. So I can copy the name of the file, right click copy, Ctrl V to paste, and then they want a semicolon, and then they want a space, and then they want a what, and what. Something like that. So where, which is the name of the file, or if it's a pair of CPP and H file, then you just write without the extension, then semicolon, space, and then what? What did I do? I did an incorrect spelling. Okay. And so the first step was move the file from unstaged to staged. For that, I clicked on the icon of the file. Okay. If I click on the name of the file, I can see the diff, which means the difference is between the previous version of the readme.md file and the current version of the readme.md file when clicking on the title, on the name of the file. When I click on the icon, it moves from unstaged to staged. If I click on the icon in staged, it moves it to unstaged. So staged, unstaged. I want it to be staged, so green. I have put the correct commit message. The last step I want to do is commit. Now we can look at the history, repository, visualize all branch history. And it says that the local Git repository has a branch which is called master, which is the current one. It says current branch master in Git GUI. In gitk, it shows that there's a newer git commit, which is called readme.md incorrect spelling of Qt project, which is on top of the remote's origin master. So on top of all of the git commits that exist on GitHub, there's a git commit, an extra git commit that only exists locally. Okay. So all of the git commits that exist remotely also exist locally, but locally there's one which doesn't exist remotely, which is readme.md. Okay, that's why the two refs, the two references, the master branch of the local repository and the master branch of the GitHub repository point to different git commits. Because this git commit exists in the local.git directory, but doesn't exist in the remote, in the github.com.git directory. Okay. Let's do a what? Let's do a ammend. So be really careful with what you do. If you have git commits that don't exist on the remote, just exist locally, then the newest one, which only exists locally, can be edited. Okay? So you didn't like, I don't know, the commit message. Well, let's edit it. So we go ammend last commit. Again, make really sure you don't amend last commits that already exist on the GitHub, on the remote origin. So don't do amend last commit for this. You can do amend last commit for the last one that only exists locally but doesn't exist remotely. Okay, so I this is what I did. I pressed this checkbox, amend last commit. So I go amend last commit. It tells me that I have the chance of editing the last commit. I can change the file or I can change the commit message. How do I change the commit message? For instance, I shorten this thing and then I like the new commit message better. I want to keep the same, just this edited file and these differences for this file, and then I go commit. Okay. Repository, visualize all branch history. It says that I have edited the last commit. Now the git commit message title is not incorrect spelling but incorrect spell, and it says that I've authored it 4 minutes ago, but committed it right now. Okay, it incorrectly shows in here that I have created this git commit 4 minutes ago. Well, I created it, but then I edited. So maybe this is the way you can decide which commits are have been amended with different author time and committer time. Okay. So really powerful feature, the fact that you can always go back to your last local git commit and just edit it. For instance, maybe you don't like the content of the file. So I click on the icon, stage changes will commit. Now the file becomes unstaged, so this orange state. So I say, I like all of the git, all of the changes, but I totally don't like this one where the URL was changed. Okay, so I'm going to revert this thing. So I select the lines to revert, then I go right click, revert lines. Okay, so now we have kept all of the changes, but we have the original version of the URL. We should not have capitalized the URL. Okay. So whenever you don't like a div, you can go right click and go revert lines. Okay. You select the lines that you don't want and you go revert lines. Or maybe you don't like any of the lines, you only like this line. Okay. So when I reverted the URL, I went select and then right click revert lines. Now I can commit, click on the icon and commit. Let's look at the history. So the same git commit message, but the file readme.md has the original URL. Okay. Now let's amend the last commit such that just the first line change exists, the others disappear. So for that I went amend last commit, I clicked on the checkbox, and then I click on the icon in the staged changes. I made the file unstaged, and now I keep only this difference. I make all of the other differences disappear. So I go right click, stage lines for commit. Now this file is both unstaged and staged. Some of the changes inside of the file are staged and prepared to be committed, which is the first line, first div that I like. And the other divs that I don't like are in unstaged changes. I throw away whatever is in unstage changes, which is, let's do it like this. So I have one changed line, one file, the correct commit message, the line and file is staged, I go commit. And then all of the rest of the changes are unstaged. I don't like them, so I go commit, revert changes, Ctrl J. Well, readme.md is going to have a ton of lines reverted. Any unstaged changes will be permanently lost by the revert. Revert changes, default button. Yes. Okay. So now, although I have edited a lot of lines in a readme.md file, I only took one to make that change, only one line change to make it staged, and then I committed with just that one line change. The rest of the change lines remained in unstaged changes, and then I went commit revert changes Ctrl J to throw away all of those lines changed. Okay, let's look at. So we're clean, nothing to show in unstaged, staged, or commit message. So that means that everything now lives in this directory, the .git directory. So let's look at the history, visualize all branch history. It says that I have a commit which contains just one file, readme.md, which contains just one line changed. So one lowercase t became uppercase T. Okay. What other things do I do? So that's how you work with unstaged, staged, revert. You can revert an entire file, you can revert just one line change. Now the git tree is clean. Let's make the git tree dirty. So I'm going to edit a file. Let's make the C++ standard be C++20, Ctrl S. Let's rescan. So this rescan button refreshes what's shown in git GUI to reflect what happens in the local git repository qxmpp. So it says that just one file is changed, unstaged, and we have just one line change, which is a 17 became a 20. Okay, and now we say, you know what? I just hate this git commit. I'm not going to go commit revert changes. I'm just going to nuke whatever is locally and take everything from GitHub. That thing is called git clean. So you go git clean. I do -xdf. I don't know what this thing means. That's what I use, git clean xdf. So this means that all of the local changes that don't exist in the .git directory, so don't exist in the git history, will be deleted, such as intermediate directories, the bin directory, the .so file, build artifacts, all of the files that don't exist in git history will disappear. Git clean xdf. It says done. Doesn't say done. Let's look at the git history again. Rescan. Whoa, it kept the unstaged changes. Now git clean doesn't do what I thought it does. Cleans the working tree by recursively removing files that are not under version control. Okay, exactly that. Starting from the current directory, yes. Normally only files unknown to Git are removed, but with the X option specified, ignored files are also removed. This can, for example, be useful to remove all build artifacts. F means force. Interactive, dry run, quiet. Okay, I have no clue what just happened there. Why it refused to delete this change, this line change. So it should have reverted this line. It says remove files. It doesn't revert files, right? So git clean only removes files, only deletes files. So it should not delete this file because why would it? And it doesn't revert. Then how do we revert things? I don't know. We just need to go commit revert changes. That's it. Okay, pretty manual. But still, when you want to make sure that there's no extra files locally that don't exist remotely, you will go git clean -xdf to delete all of the files that don't yet exist in any git commit. And then you're going to go git GUI revert changes Ctrl-J to revert all of the files that are already part of the git history of one git commit, to revert them to the correct version. Or you go git revert hard. I could also do that, yes. So let's do a revert hard. So let's look at git GUI first. It's totally clean. Change again the C++ standard. Rescan. So now one file is changed. Visualize all branch history. Yeah, let's go move the local master branch to the same git commit with this mem manager as the remote master branch, and then let's see how the git commit readme md incorrect spell will just die because of the git garbage collector. So the current branch is master. I select another git commit, then readme. So mem manager, right click on it, reset master branch to here hard. Okay. Now it says that mem manager is a git commit that's pointed to by two refs, so remote origin master and the local master. Nothing is pointing to this git commit, so this git commit is going to be lost pretty soon. And then we go, where are you? Rescan in git GUI, nothing changed locally. And then we go repository, compress database. It's a success. So this actually runs git gc, the garbage collector. Let's look at the history again. So there's no more git commit locally with readme.md. So that died because the garbage collector saw that no ref is pointing to that git commit. So that git commit is orphan and has been deleted. So that git commit did point towards this git commit, but no git commits, no refs did point to that git commit. So the relationship is parent and child. So in here you can see that the omemo manager git commit has a parent, which is this thing. All of the git commits that have a parent will not be garbage collected. and it has a child, which is the where are you? The omemo's child is no, so this is the parent and this is the child. This is the child. So children were born more recently than parents. So if it has a child, it will not be deleted, but still the last child needs to have a ref pointing to it. Okay, it does the only reasonable thing to do, the garbage collector. Dangling branches, dangling commits will be destroyed, will be deleted. Okay. What else can we do? Just two things, rebase and then the merge request flow from KDE. So how do we do rebase? Let's see. Visualize all branch history. Let's say that the master branch local is in here at add check IQ. Okay, so that means that remotely we have many more git commits on GitHub, but we git cloned a number of days ago and we didn't synchronize between GitHub and local from that moment on. So if we did sync, then we would have these git commits under our master branch. But we didn't sync fully. We did git fetch, so all of these git commits exist in our .git directory, the local .git directory, but they were not applied in the rest of the directories except .git. So master is still pointing to an old version of the source code files in the project. So again, this is it often happens that the history looks like this. Master points to an older git commit, and we see that the remote origin master is pointing to a newer git commit. That means that we did git fetch. Okay, so we have an old version of the git repository, and then we did git fetch. And now we just didn't look at the git history, and we started doing a ton of git commits on top of this add check IQ git commit. So on top of the local master. Let's do that. So change CMake list, like make this 20. Control S. Rescan. Click on the icon. Copy. Control V, colon space. C++. Bomb. Should we use lowercase or uppercase? I don't know. So they use uppercase after the colon and space, so let's do that. On CPP version to C++ 20. Okay, commit. What else can we do that? There. In readme, we say something about C++ 20. Okay, in here, so we go qxmpp, u requires C++ 20. Control S, close this thing, rescan. So two new lines were added. qxmpp requires C++ 20, and then an empty line between this paragraph and this paragraph. I click on the icon, click on the file name, right click, copy, paste, colon, Okay, uppercase require C++20, no dots, so the git commit message title should not have any full stops or dots. I don't need to go new line. Let's go new line, and create a body. Decided that C++20 support in G++ and len is too good to miss out on. Okay, and then we go new line because we don't want to have the body, the git commit message body lines be longer than 72 characters. Okay, so I pressed an enter here, which is manual line breaking, not line wrapping done automatically the way a terminal does it or the way a web browser does it. We decide that C++20 support in G++, C-len++ is too good to me, so on it. Okay, we get commit. Now let's look at the history. So how should the history look like? The history should look like an uppercase Y. Okay, so it should have a git commit that is in history that was the local master branch, and then on the left side of the Y, the uppercase Y, should be the origin remote master, and on the right hand side of the Y should be two git commits which are applied to an older git commit. So an older git commit is the parent of one git commit which is local only, and then that is parent to another child git commit that's local only, and then the local master branch points to the newer child local only git commit. So let's see if the git history really is like that. This is what it is. So it's a Y, an uppercase Y, so a bifurcation, a fork with two branches. So all of the git commits are linear, and then there's a split in the road. These are the git commits that only exist remotely, and these are the git commits, two git commits that only exist locally, 1 and 2, and remotely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we don't like such a type of history because we see that this Git repository wants to have everything in one straight line. So what we want to do is we want to take this commit and put them on top of this commit. So the history will be one line, this commit, this, then this and this. So we replace an uppercase Y with an uppercase I. Okay, this operation is called git rebase origin master, and we already have it in history, so we go Ctrl R, RE. Okay, so it search the history using readline, GNU readline. So then Ctrl R, RE. We're in bash, so this has searched the history, found git rebase origin master, and it suggested that. So I go enter git rebase origin master, and says that it has successfully rebased all of our commits, so this and this, on top of the origin master on top of this. So the history now looks like this: linear, and then on top of the mom manager there's CMake lists and then readme.md. We can go file, reload, Shift F5, And now we can see the history is linear. The next thing to do is to make sure that remote origin master git merge branch points to the same git commit as the local master branch, so to readme md. For that, we want to push these two git commits and this branch towards this branch. So we want to read from this branch and write to this branch. Unfortunately, we can't write to this branch because this branch uses HTTPS protocol and we cannot write to that. We need git SSH protocol, write to that, and then we'll see the rest of the dance. So this operation is called git rebase origin, what we just did. You often do it. Often just before writing your git commits to the remote, you're going to go git rebase origin to make sure that the history is one line. It's an uppercase I, not an uppercase Y. Okay, so you go git rebase origin, and then you start the lengthy procedure of getting your git commits that exist locally into the remote repository. Okay, so let's see that with a yeah, we can do with this Git repository if you want, but it's the same thing for GitLab and similar things with GitLab and GitHub. So I'm connected to github.com using my account. I need to do a fork. So I go fork. I'm creating a fork in my personal account. So nmariusp, qxmpp, create fork. Okay. Then I want to have a Git remote that doesn't use HTTPS protocol but uses SSH plus Git protocol. So I go code. So notice I'm not in github.com/qxmpp project /qxmpp, which is the canonical Git repository of qxmpp, but I'm in nmariusp, so github.com/nmariusp/qxmpp. So we have a third Git repository. So there's remote master, there's local, and now we also have this Git repository, which is going to be the remote fork. So I go code, SSH, copy, and then let's edit the remotes. So we go git remote -v. It says that there's just one remote, which is called origin. Let's add another one, which is always called fork. Ctrl+Shift+V. Let's look at the list of remotes. So now we have two remotes. One which is HTTPS protocol, which is called origin. We can't write to it, but we can read from it. And then we have another Git remote, which is called fork, which we can read and write to because it's using the SSH Git protocol. Okay, so now that we have two remotes, fork and origin, we can write to the fork, and we'll create in GitHub speak a pull request from my branch that I push towards the fork remote. So from fork to origin. So let's do that. Let's look at the history. So my local master branch is ahead with two git commits from the remote's origin master. I'm going to create here a branch. Create a branch. I'm going to name it work my username. And then what it does. So cpp20 create. I'm going to make this text bold, so work nmariusp/cpp_20. right click, check out this branch. So now the current branch is no longer master. I go rescan in git GUI. It says the current branch is work/n-p/cpp20. Okay, if we look at the history of just this branch, the work/n-p/cpp_20, it says that it's ahead of remote origin master with 2 git commits. I'm going to take this branch and push it towards the remote named fork. So towards here. Okay, so that's remote push fork. So the branch work/n-p/cpp_20, the correct branch, I'm going to push it to the remote named fork. So the one with Git protocol, not HTTPS protocol. So I can write to this fork, to this remote. I go push. What doesn't it like? I didn't select the branch. Okay, this guy. Okay, so it said that the branch work/n-p/cpp20 was pushed to the correct remote, which is this thing. And I can create a pull request by visiting this URL or by visiting github.com/n-p/qxmpp. So I did a reload in the web browser, Ctrl+R, reload current page. So it says that I could create a pull request. Do I want to do such a thing? I go yes. So I push on the compare and pull request green button. Just a second. Okay. And we have this green button, create and compare and create pull request. Okay. And it says that towards the official GitHub Git repository of the qxmpp-project/qxmpp branch master. So this is the destination that we write to. And we read from n-p/qxmpp the branch work/n-p/cpp20. And the title of the the pull request is usually, if there's just one git commit, then it's the title of the git commit message. But since we have 2 git commits, it couldn't invent any correct name for the pull request, and also it could not extract a body for the text of the body of the pull request, because again there's 2 git commits. So usually when you contribute to open source project, you should create one small git commit containing just a small number of lines changed, which are all part of the same logical unit, of the same logical change, and then do a pull request or a merge request with just that one git commit. This way it will be easier for the reviewers to review it, to accept it, to merge it. The text, the title of the merge request, pull request will be automatically computed. The title of the only git commit message text, and then the only git commit, it's git commit git commit message body will be also the body of the pull request. Okay. Make sure to allow edits by maintainers, because your branch that you're going to push to their repository will become stale until they accept your merge request. So they will need to do the git rebase on your branch before actually landing your branch into the branch master. Okay, so let's look at the summary. 2 commits. to change the files, everything looks okay. We should edit, in this case, the title of the pull request, put something interesting in here. C++ 20. And in this case, they have a checklist that you should make sure to test, to check before actually creating a pull request. So you should document your code. I didn't change anything, no need to document. I have some documentation in the README. QXMPP export, Doxygen warnings, update doc dope, add unit tests, format the code, run clang format -y. Okay, interesting. This is a general checklist. It doesn't apply to the changes that I did because I didn't really edit any CPP files. Okay, so then the last thing, create pull request. So after a while, the maintainers that actually can write to this git repository qxmpp-project/qxmpp might choose to take your merge your branch and put it with our two git commits on top of their master branch. Okay, so create pull request. Okay, let's see the same thing with a KDE git repository. So we have invent.kde.org/game/kubrick. Again, this is a on-premise instance of the software GitLab installed on the servers maintained by the KDE community. They have, this is called a GitLab group, games, and this is the name of the repository, Kubrick. Okay, it's in here. Let's look at, let's fetch first. So now we take the latest things from the .git directory from here, from invent.kde.org, and we put it in here. So it says it fetched 424 bytes from origin master. This is the message that you get when there's actually differences, new git commits in the remote .git directory that don't exist in the local .git directory. So 9 objects, compressing objects, total 5 delta 3, unpacking objects, 424 bytes from this remote. Okay, so right now we only have the git commits inside of the .git directory. It's not okay. We also want to put them in outside of the git directory. So for that we go git GUI to make sure that we don't have any dirtiness in here, any unstaged, uncommitted changes. So the git tree is clean. Since it's clean, we can do a rebase. So we do git rebase origin master. Has successfully rebased and updated refs heads master. Let's look at git GUI again. Okay, nothing, no changes pending. Visualize all branch history. Says that the local branch master is at the same spot as the same git commit as the remote origin master. Let's do a change, a git commit, a branch, push to fork, and then request a merge request. How do we do that? For instance, we could actually do something useful. So let's start Qt Creator. Let's open the source code. File, open file or project, Ctrl V, CMake lists, manage kits, delete this one, apply, OK. Import existing build, Ctrl V, double click here, build, go. Okay, so we did the CMake configure step. Let's do the build step. I clicked on the button build project Kubrick Ctrl+B, waiting for the compiler to finish. It did. Now we go analyze, CPP check, analyze. There's just 5 CPP files, so 5 C++ translation units. Let's see what issues are there. Not initializing constructor will ignore this. The scope of the variable v can be reduced. Let's see if this is true or not. Loop v, and then it uses v outside of the loop. So the scope of the variable v cannot be reduced. Okay, in here we have tabs. This is a tab, and this is spaces. So tabs mixed with spaces. Let's fix this. I don't know how to show white space characters. This is a tab. Shift tab, tab. This is spaces. Tab, tab. Let's fix this. Shift tab, tab. So we should use I don't know what we should use. Do not know. There should be a .editor config file that tells you if we should use tabs or for spaces. Or if not, there should be a clang format file, configuration file, which is not. Okay. So we did this, this. This is wrong. It's tabs instead of 4 spaces. Loop. So this is a for that starts here and ends here. So this is the way to do it. Okay, so spaces, 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 spaces. Okay, and now we also can really reduce the scope of the cube view variable. So what does this for do? Is a for int equals 0 I less than n I plus plus. So let's copy this text. Control V. Let's do what it says in here. Like this. So we did two things. We fixed CPP check warning in this one. Okay. Let's look at the git GUI. So we replaced some tabs with 4 spaces. We made it look way better. Make it be obvious that this is a for and the body of the for starts here and ends here. and the body of the if starts here and ends here, and like this. Okay, so it's we moved the Kubrick kdgit repository in a better, we improved it a bit in a better direction. And now we can create a merge request in the git commit. So absolutely nothing changed except white space, and we moved these characters to here before the V. So this instead of this. Okay, let's create. So I clicked on the icon. The file moved from unstaged to staged. I like all of the changed files in here. Now the file with all of its changes, all of its lines changed, is staged. Let's copy the name of the file, Ctrl V. Let's look at the history, see how they do git commit messages. So they don't say where and what. Okay, so I'm going to say where and what. Move tracker and reduce scope of variable v. Okay, I paste this thing, Ctrl C, Ctrl V. This should be less than 50 characters, which it is, the commit message title. This should be less than 72 characters. So no need for my home directory. No need to know that there's kdsrc-build in there. No need to know the name of the project. Okay, so where relative path of the move tracker file relative to the directory where I git cloned the repository, the scope of the variable v can be reduced. Doesn't have a 617 thing. How do I copy this 617? 617 is the line, is not the number of the CPP check warning, the ID of the CPP check warning. Okay, that's it. Move tracker reduce scope of variable v, fix CPP check warning, the scope of the variable v can be reduced. Commit. And let's look at the history. So local master and remote master. On top of remote master, there should be just one commit, the one that I just created. And this should be in a branch which is named work Marius P / scope of v. Create. The current branch should not be local master but local work and Marius P scope of v. So right click on this, check out this branch. Now the text of the name of the branch became bold, so work / Marius P scope of v. Okay, rescan, it says that the current branch is this. Now we're going to compile at least once the thing to make sure it correctly builds. kdsrc build -- no src -- no include dependencies -- debug kdsrc -build no src no include dependencies debug and the name of the repository. Paste. I'm using kdsrc -build to build it. So the configure step was skipped because nothing has changed. The compilation was incomplete, so it did build not rebuild, so that's a problem. For that we need to delete the build directory. So tilde/kd/build/games and then the name of the repository, which is Kubrick ku. Okay, let's delete this directory. Let's now build again. Okay. So since there was no build directory, it created the build directory from scratch, this thing. And it has run inside of it cmake, the configure step. Which was successful, says build files have been written to the tilde/kd/build/game/kubrick directory. Then it runs make, which in this case does rebuild, not build. I don't see any compilation errors. Let's see if there are any tests in there. Make test. Just one test, one for upstream. So, well, if it compiled, well, anyway, I don't see how my change could have broken anything because I looked enough times at the git commit, so I did my own code review. So this thing has moved here. The rest of the things existed already and are not changed except for white space changes. Some spaces instead of tabs. Okay. So the next thing to do is to have 3 Git repositories. So this is the directory where our Git cloned. I have 3 Git repositories already. Okay. So I have 2 Git repositories, the local one and the remote origin. I'll need to add the remote fork. So for that, I go to invent.git.org/game/kubrick. This is the origin Git repository. I'm logged with my user account. I go fork. At this step, either it creates a fork of the Git repository or it goes to your already existing fork. I already created a fork of this Git repository, so the fork already existed, so it took me there. So it's invent.git.org/nmariusp/kubrick versus invent.git.org/games/kubrick. So this thing is games for the origin and is nmariusp for my fork. Okay. Clone with SSH, copy, git remote, add, fork, Ctrl+Shift+V, git remote -v. To this git remote I can write because it doesn't use HTTPS. This uses HTTPS. I can only read from it. Okay. After that, I need to reopen git GUI. Okay, the correct branch is on my git local repository. I look at the history yet one more time. The correct branch is selected. Just one commit on top of remote's origin master. I'll push my local branch to my own repository, which is the fork. Push. success, and I can create a merge request, which I'm going to do. I go refresh, and it says that I have pushed into this Git repository, which is ae9b861a/Kubrick, the branch work/ae9b/scope of v. Do I want to create a merge request? I want. It sees that there's just one git commit, says commits 1. This commit has a commit message. The commit message has a text, a title. The title was already put in here. And the commit message has a body. The body was already put in here. So this was pre-populated correctly. This was pre-populated correctly. I leave all of the options in the default value. So checked, checked, and this not checked. And one last time I go at the changes tab and look at all of my changes. So for 13 deletions, 14 deletions, 13 additions. That means that I deleted a line, which is this one. I edited this line in here, and then I changed the tone of white spaces. Okay. I like what I see, and I go create merge request. That's it. So from now on, we just wait for the maintainers of invent.kd.org/game/Kubrick to accept the merge request number 9 from me. Okay, so that's about all I know about how to use the Git distributed version control system. It's this software package. It's available in all of the Linux distributions. You can download it from here for Windows or for Mac OS. It has built-in, so inside of this download, you have GUI tools, which are 2 GUI tools, git space GUI, which is this thing, and gitk, which is this one. So gitk is just a view of the history, and git GUI is the rest of the GUI. So for staging, for unstaging, for reverting lines, commits,